I will not be before you long. I give honor to our bishop. I give honor to the first family. I give honor to all those of ministerial distinction. I give honor to you, the blood wash. And now that protocol has been established, I can begin my assignment. I've been voluntold to do a part 2 of last week's assignment. It'll be a brief exhortation. We're going to pick up right where we left off from last week. And last week, we spoke about the 90. And I want to expand upon some topics we touched upon last week. Last week, we arrived at the conclusion that most people have the problem is not with the 10% when it comes to tithing, it's with the 90. And the reason why the 90 is a problem is because we all have issues with what? Poor management. Management is very important to God. Everyone in this room, everyone under the sound of my voice who is a believer is expected to be a good manager. We covered that. It's biblically expected of us. Management is the process of accomplishing God's purposes and plans through proper use of human, material, and spiritual resources. Management is evaluated by whether or not these plans and purposes are accomplished. The main requirement God does not consider successful because of the God does not consider our plans successful, our management successful because of our education, natural ability, or personality. We are successful because of our faithfulness. The main required of stewards or managers is that we're faithful. Management is another word for stewardship. Managers are responsible for something or entrusted to do something that's owned by someone else. That's what a manager is. Jesus told us in the parable of Matthew, we went over it last week, 25:14-30, about servants whose master gave them resources called talents, in which case was money. They were told to be good stewards and use these funds wisely. And those who did so were called faithful, and they were rewarded. And those who failed were called wicked, were judged, and held accountable. All right, I'm going somewhere to this, I promise you. We will receive, the only thing, saints, we're going to receive is what we can manage. So if you look over your life and you're telling someone what you don't have, that is directly reflective of your ability to manage. Management is a mindset, and it should be applied in all phases of our lives. I don't want us to make the mistake of thinking it only has to do with finances. In addition to your finances, in your marriage or social relationships, you should always be using management, because the only two things you're going to argue about in a relationship is time and money. Mindset, by the way, ladies, I discovered this in my research. While it's Father's Day, this same call is being made of the women. When we look at Proverbs 31, specifically verse 15, this talks about the qualities of a wife. Considers, and for the purposes of time, a woman considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. According to this verse, a woman investor applies wisdom to her decision. She doesn't invest just on any piece of land. Instead, she seeks to produce an income-producing property. This means that she has to be minded to invest. Now, it's told to me that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Now, why is this important, Romeo? Why are we bringing this up right now? Because it talks to the mindset. When we're looking for a spouse, we're looking for someone who's equally yoked. So if his mindset is on investment, your mindset should be on investment, because the only two things we're going to argue about, once again, is time. I see you reading the same Bible I'm reading. All right. The other place where you should be using management is your ability to parent. Your success or failure in parenting depends on your ability to manage. When it comes to time, your ability to use your time effectively in life is all about management. There's an adage that says if you want something done, give it to a busy person. That's because they know how to manage their time. Lastly, and I need everybody to pay attention, emotions. In life, no matter how smart, no matter how well you are, you will not get very far if you don't know how to manage your emotions. There are some people in here who stuck right now because of our inability to manage our mouths. And the reason why we're having challenges with this type of management is because we rely on our emotions or our flesh. But the Bible is very clear on why we should not make decisions based on emotion. I want to park it right here because I know you guys think I make stuff up. So we're going to go right to the Bible. We're going to go to Jeremiah. We're going to go to 17, Jeremiah 17, 9 to 10, so you can see what I see. And we're going to go with the NKJV version so you know that I'm saved. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruits of his doings. Right here in verse 10 speaks about our ability to manage. Because of our inability to manage our emotions, we tend to want what the heart wants instead of checking our emotions. Saints, hear me closely. Emotions and management do not mix. If you don't have it, that's one thing. We're not talking about the people who don't have it. You feel bad because you don't have it and you want to give. God's not talking about you. God knows your heart. We're talking about the people who do have it but mismanage it, and once the call is to give, they start to hesitate. That's who we're talking about right now. Good fiscal decisions should be void of emotions. What does that mean? It must be practical, it's got to be sound, and it's got to yield a positive result. I'm not investing in something unless it makes sense. Now, it can be scary, but the better we are at managing our resources, the less fear comes into play. Why? Because we're following kingdom principles that are laid out in the Word of God. The better we manage, the better decision makers we become, and in turn, the fear dissipates. The main reason emotion and management don't mix is because there's always going to be storms. And we can't make long-term decisions based on a moment in time. All storms, all doubts is a moment. There are always going to be challenges. There's always going to be some sort of storm. But this is where our faith kicks in, because our faith should be built on the rock who is Jesus Christ. And if it's built on Christ, then no storm should be able to overtake you. However, what I want us to note is that God knows we're going to mess up, and so he gives us grace. However, what we do is we take grace for granted. We use it as an excuse to use it when we feel like doing it. I will get into the gym tomorrow. I will brown bag my lunch starting next week. It's restaurant week, and I'm going eating. I will pay that bill next week, even though I got the money right now, because we're going for drinks after work. That bill can wait. I will pay my dad or that person I owe money to back next week, even though I've got that money in my hand right now. We take God's grace for granted, and we're all guilty of this behavior. But the Bible warns us of this so we can understand the behavior that we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing. Let's go to Romans 7 really quick. I see Bishop looking at me. I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't. Instead, I do what I hate. But if I know what I'm doing is wrong, this shows that I agree that the law is good. So I am not the one doing the wrong. It is the sin in me that does it. And I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. I don't want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But if I do what I don't want to do, I am not really the one doing wrong. It is the sin living in me that does it. I know what I want to do, but I don't do it. Ro, it's not that I don't want to tithe, I just ain't got it. You don't have it because you mismanage it. It doesn't change until we stop blaming the devil for our decisions and start taking responsibility for our actions. Management demands change, and no one wants to do the work. But we like to hate on those who put in the work and get the blessing. I know I gave you some definitions the last one. I want to expand on some things. Management, again, implies we don't own it. Now, this is key, because the whole principle of tithing is based on this understanding. We're complaining about the 10 when we forget who gave us the ability to get the 100. God owns everything, and he asks us for the 10%, not for his sake, but for our sake. God doesn't need your measly 10. But the 10 keeps us humble. The 10 keeps us in check. It teaches us how to manage the 90. All right. I'm starting to feel it now. It allows us to remember who provided it all, because if left alone, we, with our dumb selves, will think we did it on our own. The truth is, we can't manage $1,000 right now. In fact, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do an exercise. I need everybody to close their eyes real quick. let's just say everyone in this room was praying to God for $500. $500. But the God that we serve, who goes above and beyond, he says, you know what? He heard your prayer. He blesses you with 1,000. He said, take it. You got 1,000. The second we open our eyes and we see that $1,000, the majority of people in here would be thinking about what they're going to buy for themselves with that excess money rather than tithing off that 1,000 and giving thanks. Using the rest of those funds, the 400, to invest to make better use of those resources. Chances are we would not think to put God first. This is similar in meaning to the text when we see there was 10 lepers who got healed, but only one came back to give thanks. The 1 out of 10, a tenth that came back to give thanks. So it had me thinking, how many of us can manage our thanks? How many of us remember to come back and say thank you to God? If I had 10,000 tongues, it wouldn't be enough. Our problem is once we get a little bit of money, we don't know how to act. We have to have that lobster dinner. We've got to go get that new outfit. Instead, though, what if we thought about taking that excess money and investing it, putting it in some lemonade stock or a CD or invested in a business? What if I put it toward a skill that can get me to where I need to go next? Until we learn how to manage, saints, we can't multiply. And until we learn how to multiply, we can't take dominion. And the only way we're going to learn how to multiply is when we learn how to manage. Oh, I see we coming along. So what are the components to management? I got to go, so stay with me. We can remind it when we get home. Number 1, you got to be accountable. I have to own my own mess. Number 2, I got to be disciplined. Number 3, I got to be able to budget. Number 4, I want us to understand we have to have integrity. Can I do the right thing even when there's nobody looking? Number 5, I have to remain focused. You have to constantly stay focused. I have to be faithful and I have to be trustworthy. Question is, can God trust you? Can God trust you? I'm going to close with this because the Lord keeps bringing me back, and I'm going to share something with you. I sat back in preparation for this and calculated wasteful spending. Proverbs 18:19 warns us, whoever is slack in his work is a brother to him who destroys. And we all know who that guy is. Proverbs 21:20 says, a wise man saves for the future, but a fool spends whatever he gets. The most precious commodity we have, contrary to popular belief, saints, is time, and it's our health. And we spend a lot of time wasting. Did you know, when I looked this up, the average person spends about 5 to 6 hours a day on their phone? 5 to 6 hours a day. Over a 70-year lifespan, that's 12 to 15 years. Did you know that many black families, when someone passes, transfer zero wealth to the next family? This is crazy. The average dollar amount, when we break it down by dollars, this is crazy. It's $15,000 for black families, $85,000 for white families. 1/3 of white families, for those who are doing our math, that's 75% of people, of white families, leave an inheritance for their kids. Recently, I did a small exercise because I like to look at myself. You guys are perfect. I'm working on myself. But what I found out is one of my vices, so I'm going to confess it to you. My vice is I love coffee. I love coffee. I spend every day 1 large coffee, $4 at Dunkin' Donuts. I'm like Norm from Cheers when I go to Dunkin' Donuts. They know my name. When I walk in there, they give me apparel. I can walk behind the desk. I spend $4 every day, 6 days a week. That's $24 a week for those of us who do quick math. Over a period of a month, it's roughly $100. I spend $1,200 a month on coffee. $1,200 a month because I can't discipline my flesh. Don't look at me crazy because I got a $4 vice. Some of you got a $20 vice when you get into Manhattan, or a $50 vice. There are people here who've been praying for a financial miracle. Somebody in here has been praying for money. I tell you what, God has a sense of humor. You ready for this? If you calculate the money that you've been mismanaging, I guarantee it's the same amount you've been praying for. I am not sure if the rest of you realize, but Bishop, I found something out. We in June. That means 6 months have already passed by. I did my vision board. I just scrapped it. The last 6 months of my time, I'm going to plan on figuring out how I can be a better manager. Let's all make the commitment to be better managers. In the words of one of the wisest elders I know, Olivia Lashambe, let's govern ourselves accordingly. Saints, it's time to give.